The United States Air Force Force Protection Battle Lab's primary mission is to rapidly identify the potential of force protection concepts. To make this happen, the Battle Lab brings 25 individuals with over 10 different functional areas of expertise to bear on this problem. I'm Captain Luke Cropsey, and as a structural engineer on this team, my primary focus and area emphasis has been on the most common of terrorist tactics, the vehicle bomb. The video you are about to see is a cross-section of several tests from various organizations in an attempt to better understand and quantify the effects of blast and fragmentation caused by vehicle bombs on U.S. assets. This video represents the cutting edge of technology and is an ongoing effort in understanding how to mitigate the casualties and the physical damage associated with vehicle bombs.
Vehicle bombs cause damage through two primary mechanisms: overpressure from the blast and fragments from the vehicle or surrounding objects. This analysis will specifically address the effects of blast on windows and expeditionary shelters. Fragment effects will be broken into two categories: primary vehicle fragments and secondary debris. In order to quantify the effects of blast on expeditionary structures, the Force Protection Battle Lab participated in a test funded by the Technical Support Working Group and executed by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. The Battle Lab fielded a number of temper tents and a general-purpose shelter that were behind barriers. There was a general perception that these barriers would protect the assets behind them. The tents were instrumented with pressure probes both inside and outside. All of the tents had mannequins with typical furniture layouts. The general-purpose shelters had similar arrangements, the intent being to document the effects of the blast wave on the mannequins and the furniture. The 5,000 pounds of C4 are just off the left edge of the screen. The two protected temper tents are on the far left. The unprotected tent used for baseline comparison is located just to the right of the protected tents. The general-purpose shelters are on the far right, one behind the other. The general-purpose shelter closest to the camera is protected by an earth berm. The shock wave will travel across the screen from the left to the right. Notice the effect on the earth berm protecting the general-purpose shelter. The shock wave completely envelops the berm. A high-speed close-up of the general-purpose shelter reveals an interesting effect. From this camera view, the GP closest to the camera is the unprotected structure, while the shelter in the background is the protected one. The response of these structures is identical in nearly every respect. The effects of the blast on these expeditionary structures was devastating. The protective blast walls provided no additional blast protection to the assets behind them. Further analysis indicates that for the expeditionary structures, blast walls will not appreciably reduce the physical damage or possibility of injury to occupants. An interior view of the tents and general-purpose shelters effectively describes the nature of the hazards that result from these large vehicle bombs. For this type of structure, the tent frames create the most damage. In the case of the general-purpose shelter, the entire wall panel section is blown into the interior of the structure. The resulting fragment and blunt trauma hazard from these panels are significant. As if the wall panel failure isn't bad enough, the roof panel also collapses. Also tested in this series were a number of window configurations. The glass in this test was laminated glass, much like you would find in the windshield of a car. In contrast to conventional glass, the hazard changes from shards to a single massive projectile. In the second test, the exact same window system was tested. In this case, the frame retains the glass, and at most, small flecks of glass fall off the back surface of the window. The difference in standoff between these two windows was only 100 feet. The most important lesson to take out of the blast testing efforts is the need for standoff. The second point that needs to be understood is that in an expeditionary environment, blast walls do not exist. At the most, blast walls will prevent fragment impact, but not blast damage. The intent of the dipole mite series of tests was to provide the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms with typical fragment patterns from various vehicle bombs. Inside the truck, ammonium nitrate fuel oil, or ANFO, was stacked up in 50-pound bags. The detonation was initiated with 4 1-pound pentolite boosters. As the detonation occurs, watch the fragments from several different camera angles. You can see pieces of the truck impacting the ground along the bottom of the screen. In this last view, the fragments will fly from the left to the right of the screen. This provides a very clear picture of both the density of the fragments and the velocity at which they are moving. Another test was conducted at Eglin Air Force Base, Florida. The Battle Lab had two particular items of interest. One, can primary fragments be stopped? And two, how significant is secondary debris from concrete barriers? This was the pre-test layout and condition of the range. Various vehicles were also placed around the tanker truck to record the damage level. The earth-filled barrier wall was placed approximately 85 feet behind the tanker. The concrete barrier you see was approximately 20 feet behind the tanker and 65 feet from the earth-filled barrier. The charge itself was actually hand-packed into the tanker truck. 3 charge initiation points were used to detonate the C4. The truck is facing the camera in this view. A frame-by-frame capture shows the expansion of the fireball very clearly. A ground-mounted camera 2 miles away was also used to document the event. This angle provides a very clear view of the shock wave as it develops and begins to expand outward from the tanker truck. The post-test analysis indicated a significant amount of damage from primary fragments. The earth-filled barrier 85 feet behind the tanker truck was flattened. However, further analysis indicated that the barrier remained in place long enough to absorb the fragments. The barrier directly behind the tanker truck was essentially pulverized from the force of the detonation. Pieces of concrete and rebar from this barrier were found up to 700 feet downrange. The good news was that the other barriers remained intact and were essentially pushed over by the shock wave. The Department of State conducted a series of tests at Eglin Air Force Base to better quantify secondary debris hazards from perimeter walls. In these tests, 2,400 pounds of AMFO were placed on a light wood platform at approximately truck bed level, 6 feet from the wall. The first wall was constructed from simple concrete block without any reinforcement. 100 feet behind the wall was a test apparatus designed to record the impact load of the debris hitting a simulated embassy wall. A close-up of the test apparatus demonstrates the force of this debris as it impacts the witness wall. The second test is of a reinforced concrete wall. The debris from this test was traveling at an average velocity of 310 feet per second or 211 miles per hour. This is less than half the velocity from the standard concrete block wall. To be effective, fragment barriers must be placed in close proximity to the assets they are designed to protect. In addition, a significant portion of secondary debris can be eliminated by simple earth revetment.
Hopefully this video has provided you with additional insight into the vehicle bomb threat. The Force Protection Battle Lab is on a continuing quest to protect our people. Many of the techniques to reduce the hazards from vehicle bombs came from people just like you. The Battle Lab needs your input on problems and solutions to be effective. If you see a problem or have a solution you think the Battle Lab could use, please contact us at the address or phone number that you see here.